my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance to spit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and long gone green. They call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matty. I'm joined tonight on the first of a sort of relaunched Heidbangers episode by Neil Renton. And Gordon, I forgot your surname off the top of my head.
Greenan.
Greenan. How did I do that? I've got it. Like, I know your surname. That's off to a good start, isn't it?
Fucking hell. I'm quitting already.
That's it. Sacked it. I forgot my surname now. Matty Fairney, there we go. Right. So just to kind of set the scene a wee bit for the episode, and although I'll start to talk it and as if I'm hosting it, I'm not really the host of the new Heidbangers. This is our sort of conversation around mental health. So Heidbangers, if you've listened before, has sort of sat in the background of the Longbangers range of podcasts, and we thought, have given it a wee bit of a backseat for a wee while, that it deserved its own place in the world. So this is a sort of relaunch. We don't profess to be mental health experts at all. As we said in previous episodes, that if you are struggling with your mental health, go and seek support from somebody who knows what they're talking about. I'd be like the GP, or look at the Samaritans, or some of the several other helplines that are out there, or just speak to somebody that you know and trust, and you'd be amazed at the difference that would make. So tonight we're going to kind of go and reflect on our New Year's, and we're going to talk a little bit about the sort of the physical impact that mental health can have on you. So Neil, I'll come to you first. How was your New Year, mate?
I know it was all right, and I think it's just the whole thing of like Christmas and New Year and that, and then getting used to like new routines and stuff, and just like sort of coming back to work and that, and just try to get on with stuff. And the whole thing, like I always try and set like New Year resolutions, but then probably give up on them far too quickly, like everybody. So it's a case of maybe like setting resolutions like just whenever you can. Do you know what I mean? Like focusing on them. What is the resolution? But what's like the steps that you're going to take towards that, as opposed to just like, oh, I'm going to like run a marathon, and then you just sort of like forget all about it type thing. But I know it's been all right. It's been all right.
I've never resolved to run a marathon. I'm just putting that out there. That is, and I don't think that will ever feature in any of my New Year's resolutions.
Was it a resolution is not just for just after Christmas?
Aye.
It's for
life.
Every day, all the time.
Week in January.
Aye, and that. But I think that's what makes it though like that. I think because people just wait till it's January. You have to have a New Year's resolution, and because they do it at the same time every year, and because everybody else is doing it, it's almost like a token gesture, and you read it, and then you just never follow through it. Whereas if you're in the mindset of just always, it's not really a resolution if you're just always aiming to do something, though, is it?
Aye, nah, totally. Like an aim, purpose behind it, steps that you're going to achieve to get it, then it can be set at any time. Because and it is like, it's like when people start gym memberships and that, it must be like the busiest time of the year for gym memberships, January, and it'll be the busiest time for the people working in the cancellation departments of the gym memberships on February. They're like, oh no, someone else is trying to cancel. I suppose it's that thing.
Sorry, you carry on.
Sorry, on you go. No, on you go, buddy.
I was just saying, there's that thing in December, as it gets near Christmas, it's all the folk who've never been drinking for ages that go out drinking and ruin it for all the full-time drinkers. And then in January, it's all the non-fitness folk that go and ruin it for the proper fitness folk, because they're not really meant to be there, isn't it? So,
aye.
What about yourselves? Are you big on like having resolutions and that, or for the New Year or any time of the year actually?
Nah. I never find it that helpful. It's like an added pressure you didn't really need, isn't it? Like that, like you say, there's an expectation that folks set New Year's resolutions, and I can count on probably one finger how many I've actually stuck to. So I said, what's the point? You just set yourself up to fail.
Unless you follow through on it, and then you've had great success.
Have you done that? Have you followed through on any of your resolutions before?
I followed through at Christmas time a few times, but
no resolutions.
No. I've never. I probably have done resolutions in the past, like when I was younger, because it was like you just like everybody does it and then you just do it. But the older I've got and the grumpier I've got, it's me. I didn't even. I'm not even interested in New Year at all. It's just another day. Like it's just like time ticking on. It actually depresses me a wee bit because you're like, that year went so fucking fast. We're into another year, and that's going to be a year older, closer to death.
And it's bad when you sort of become one of those people and you say, I can't believe it's like the middle of January already. Do you know what I mean? You're like, no, when did I become that person? I can't believe it's December. But New Year is just another thing now, isn't it? And I've sort of joked about it before. It's just like you'll have like Christmas and that when you're younger. It was like Christmas and birthdays, and now it's like Halloween's a big massive thing. And like I'm convinced that like in a generation, Spotify Wrapped is going to be a national holiday. We've got to get a holiday, and everybody's got to like boast about like who's been in their top
That'd be great,
five and
though.
stuff like that. I know it would be good like that. Imagine that, just
holiday.
taking a day off and then.
It's probably what I could get on board with, Neil.
Get into the music, celebrate music.
Spotify Wrapped. I know Spotify Wrapped Day national. But I remember being on holiday in America, and you're like in a Walmart, and it's just like the greetings cards that they've got, and it was just like international, like be nice to your boss day and stuff like that. It's just like America's just like they must have like an event for every day in America, just this and that, this and that. But
it loses its meaning, though. Like Americanization of celebrating things. Just ruined it. Just completely ruined it.
Trick or treat when you were younger, you would just go about and like rob for the younger kids and that were like getting sweets and that. You just pick on them and do it. But now it's just like a big massive thing, and people get like mad like outfits and stuff like that, and it's like kids will take the day off school to get ready. It's like, nah, this is far too much. Like it is. But again, that's probably like a pressure where like people try to keep up with everybody else now as well.
I think that's the key to it, is that pressure, isn't it? Like, because my missus is Halloween daft. We were in Florida last year for Halloween, well, just before Halloween. They've got all the Halloween stuff in Disney and everything, and she would purposely went for that, and it was amazing. Like, I've got to say, like the Halloween nights and stuff, they've got the folk dressed up and all the other people dressed up in amazing costumes, and it is great fun. And like in that situation, it is great, but you can take it in small doses, eh? Like you can't just be doing that all the time. And I do like again, it is fun. And if you take it at that and it's fun, and you're not adding that pressure, and then passing it on to your kids and stuff like that, like, oh, you've got to dress up like this and you've got to do that, and then you've got to have the most decorations outside your house and all this shit. It's like that's when all the fun gets sucked out of it. Like, and that whole Americanization thing, it's happened for Christmas Day, because so I work with people from all around the world, and there was a guy who's actually just left my work recently, but he came from Romania, and he was leaving, and he was going back to Romania to stay just before Christmas. And I was asking him about like, what's Christmas like in Romania? He was like, it's not much really. We'd get with family with like one present each. Didn't have like big lights outside the house and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I said to him, I was like, you've not been Americanized yet, have you? Like over there. And he's like, nah, like Central Europe and that, and like none like that. We've been Americanized, and it has its pros, because I love Christmas. Like I think it's my favourite time of the year. I love winter. I love the cold weather, and I like all the family time and all that kind of stuff and the eating. But I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't like New Year as well, because it signals to me that Christmas is over.
That's quite sweet.
They take a fucking piss.
Don't patronise me.
I
used to like Christmas a lot more, but I guess it's just like a hassle. It's like that thing about the pressure, and that it's like the expectation that comes with it, like the keeping up with the Joneses, like, and see, like the folk that plaster, and no offence if either of you do this, but have like the outside of their houses like Blackpool.
Definitely not.
And you think like it's great, but it makes other people feel inadequate if they're not doing it, or like there's a pressure. It's like folk putting a Christmas trees up now early November, which is, and you think each to their own, right? Folk are grown ups, they can decide what they want to do, but as soon as it goes up, you're like, when do we put ours up now? And it sort of forces your hand with it a wee bit, and we resisted it a lot this year. This is probably our biggest bah humbug Christmas that we've had in our house, because we were like, do you know what? we didn't have to have the Christmas that everybody else is having. Let's
Mhm.
do it the way that we want to have it, and kind of just had it a wee bit calmer than in previous years. But the pressures, we're lucky the kids are a bit older. I think if the kids were young,
Aye.
the pressure to deal with that would have been much higher.
And I think that's a big factor, like definitely like the kids and stuff, depending on ages. Mine's are older than that as well. And I helped out on a Christmas Day, the community foundation down at Easter Road, and you'd seen it sort of like it brought it home a bit. Like before it, like my family, we were like stressing about we couldn't find a tablecloth that we'd bought for Matlin, like on sale in October. You know, when you buy it and as a bargain, let's put that away. Couldn't find it, and I was the stress thinking, like we had it, like that was going to be perfect. Couldn't find it, and you go down to like Easter Road. And it's people coming on Christmas Day, so there was like Ukrainian, like orphans and stuff like that, refugees, and there was people who had no one else. Like they were saying they hadn't spoke to anybody for 3 days, and it sort of puts into context what you're worrying about is like nothing compared to what they worry about. Do you know what I mean? They would like rather swap a missing dishcloth for like missing relatives and that, or missing friends and stuff. So it does make you. I think it's easy enough for like Christmas and other things as well, just to get caught up in like the stuff that doesn't matter and forget about the stuff that does.
Aye. Use that appreciation, and fair play for you. Fair play to you for doing that, Neil. By the way, I thought it was fantastic.
It was good. Like it was good. It was just like total, like just made you appreciate stuff. Do you know what I mean? And it's like when my kids being older, I could have done it when they're younger, but they're older than that, so it's like just go down a couple of hours on that and then meet folk and stuff. And it was good. It was good, and it gives you like just makes you feel a bit more humble, a bit more grounded in that as well. And again, appreciate what matters in life as opposed to worry about the stuff that doesn't.
Do you feel like, so if you take what happens with Christmas, right? So if you take Christmas now compared to Christmas when you were a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, Gordon, about the Americanization of it, and you've got this the pressure for it to be massive now, so the big decorations and the big presents. Kids all expect much more now than like when I was wee. You were going to get a few things. Your mum and dad would do the best that they could, but it wouldn't be spectacular. Like it wouldn't be folk going overboard with it. Whereas now that's the expectations. You see folk now doing presents on Christmas Eve. They give the kids like a pre-Christmas
box.
You know, like this has become a thing. And Gordon, you mentioned about Halloween. We've seen that with Halloween now, where that's becoming more and more extravagant. The shops have got the stuff in early. There's an expectation that it almost becomes tradition to go over the top with it. Easter's the same, where the stuff, almost as soon as the Christmas stuff's cleared out, you start seeing the shop selling the Easter stuff.
I
think it takes away from like how special it is, because you just end up, speaking for myself, I end up resenting it. You see the Easter eggs in the shop, and you just think, fuck off. Like, it's all driven.
And then you buy 3.
Aye, for myself. Aye. Free with a cup of tea at bedtime, yep. But it ends up having like a negative effect rather than looking forward to something special. New Year's the same, probably for a different reason. I think New Year's still like New Year's got a special place in Scotland, isn't it? Like Hogmanay, and the way that we celebrate it. But I used to find, when they started doing the street parties in Edinburgh, there was the pressure to go there, and actually it got too big at one point, and it wasn't an enjoyable thing, but you felt you still had to go.
Do you know that Edinburgh's got the world record for the biggest New Year's Eve street party ever? And it was like the time it was 400,000 people in like Princess Street. I think my wee sister was there. I'm sure there was like Ocean Colour scene, Stereophonics. I think it was the first time Stereophonics had ever played a concert outside Wales, apparently, or something like that. First time they'd ever been in Scotland was like 400,000 people. I don't think it was like properly ticketed, and it was just pandemonium. I think at that point they were like, let's just like ticket it. There's money being made out of this, but and it's true though, like, and it is the whole thing. And do you think as well though, when you think back on it, like, don't know what classes you're, but I'm definitely like working class. And there was like, when you were younger, there was like a working class Christmas, but all I knew was like working class folk, and that was it. You got what you had, as you say, you got what you never really asked for much, and you got what you were given. But now, even nowadays, like people that you would assume are working class, it's like still big, massive presents and stuff like that. So it's like there's been a shift in like what people's needs are. Maybe, I don't know. Does that, so you couldn't before you could tell what working class Christmas was, working class New Year was, but now Halloween. But now it's just like everybody's the sort of same. We're all trying to outdo each other. It's just like pandemonium.
I find it hard to relate to it. I think that's where I struggle with it. It's just like that's not who I am. Like, and it's no enjoyable. There's none of that. The pressure to try and find the money for it all. To even sometimes just to find what folk are looking for. Like, and you see it with you had it with the PS5. I don't even know what the big Christmas toy was this year because thankfully mine's are kind of grown out of it. But the year before, PS5s, you couldn't get them. You knew, like, what of your kids wanted it. You couldn't get one for loving their money. And then you're like, they're going to be disappointed at Christmas, and that's no fun. Like, none of that's fun. Christmas is meant to be like a good fun time, but you start having this pressure, and I just find it really stressful, and I don't really relate to a lot of it now.
You've got to be conscious of like what that's teaching your kids as well. You know what I mean? Like, because I can, my kids are spoiled. Like, and I am, and I speak to my wife about it often. I'm like, they're fucking spoiled rotten. But and we're like, well, we're to blame. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, but at the same time, you're like, you didn't want them feeling like they're getting left out or they're not getting the nice things. Like, my sole purpose in life is to like love my kids and my family and bring them up the best I can and set them off into the world and give them the best platform. But then it's like that. I keep talking about balance, but the balance of giving them what they want and also what they need.
Yeah.
Because if you're just giving them everything, then they're not seeing the value in like. I mean, I'm not going to get into the conversation and stereotype kids and generations and stuff like that, but
do it.
I think they're all wee shits. You've just got to like because we went to Florida this year and it cost a lot of money, and I'm really lucky that I was in a position that we could even go, and we had to see the kids like Christmas is scaled back this year. You know, getting because last we did manage to get my oldest lad a PlayStation 5, but it was his birthday's in March, so we said it's Christmas and birthday together. And like they didn't have any big presents this year. It was just like we went to Florida, it cost a fortune. They had spending money over there, and they brought all the stuff back and everything. So it was like a lot more scaled back than they're used to, and they were fine with it. And I was quite proud. I kind of thinking they're going to be a real bit like my older two are older, and I'm, like my youngest is 9, so I was more worried about him, but kind of like proud in a way that they just accepted it and went fine, and they were really happy on Christmas Day. Like. Just brilliant, and it's finding that balance. But I can imagine there's probably a lot of kids that would just go daft if didn't they get what they wanted.
Maybe we didn't give him enough credit. Like his the parents in that situation, that you assume the worst, that they're not going to take it very well, or they'll be really upset if they didn't get the Christmas. But actually, and you see, like Kevin, with right wee kids, sometimes it's the cheapest toy that they get. The cheapest present's one that ends up their favourite.
Or the cardboard box.
Maybe as they get older, if you just kind of trust that if you get them the right present, it doesn't necessarily have to be the most expensive one, or just flooding them. Because actually, a lot of the stuff that you get them, they never look at because it's almost overwhelming, isn't it? The amount of stuff that they can get. So maybe that's a wee lesson for us, Gordon, that is having that like a conversation with saying, did they expect loads?
I think so. Yeah, I'm starting to find that out. Like we only get. Well, I was going to say you only get one shot at like bringing up your kids, but like depending on how many kids you've got, you get multiple shots. But you're always learning. I think that as a parent, like I'm just always learning how it was stuff that my oldest laddie, that the way I dealt with him when he was younger, it was just like thinking back on it, I was like, that just wasn't the way to deal with it. Like I shouldn't have dealt with it that way. I should have dealt with it this way, and I've learned that. So my youngest laddie, he gets dealt with in a better way. And and then if you start feeling guilty, you're like, but I wish I had a time machine to go back, and like, but you can't think like that. Like you're a human being. All you can do is do this stuff, learn from it, and then adjust. And I say that that's one thing I've tried to drill into my kids, especially the older two, when they make mistakes. Is it's fine. It's good to make mistakes. It's how you learn from those mistakes and what you do from it. If you keep doing the same thing over again, then you've got a problem. But if you do something wrong and you learn from it and you do it that way the next time, spot on. That's all you can do. You need everything for a start. You've got to learn these things. So I think there's learns, especially about around Christmas and stuff like that, and how we deal with this stuff. And, let's give them more credit than maybe already are.
I think it's probably
a decent.
Oh no, it was.
Sorry, Neil. I think we're on satellite delay.
I was just going to
On
say
you go.
there's situations I think in which like adults act like kids and kids act like adults and stuff like probably Christmas is one of them. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe like making a situation worse for what it doesn't really need to be like when the kids are like they're more mature about it than us.
Go back to New Year. Do you find that in the post New Year period, which is kind of where we're at just now, there's a shift in your mood and how you feel about things?
I think, man, definitely, and that's how even like talking about like resolutions and that, even just to have like goals and that for what you want to do, because it is like it can become like quite a dark or sort of like yeah, like your moods can become quite dark in that because the weather's like I'm not a fan of the cold weather, so the weather's worse. Tend to be skint. There's nothing on as well a lot of the time, and it's just that thing where like you're back at work as well. Credit cards are bills and that are starting to come in, and it's just like oh here we go, like another year I'm going to get older than that. So I think it can be quite usually like a dark time. That's how like well no being like massive on like resolutions, but just to have like things like well this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to do it, and even just breaking it down like on a day by day basis. So this is what I've done today that'll help me get that goal in a week's time, in a month's time, and so on. So on the resolution, probably just like more aims and that's to help you like people through this, and even having like stuff ready, so being prepared for it. And it's like quite sad, but I'll look at like what music's coming out. We were talking about going like what new music. So Iggy Pop's last album was out on Friday. I think Circle Waves is out maybe this Friday or a couple of weeks time. So even stuff that's like all new music, there's stuff which is coming on telly, stuff in the cinema. So it's like watching Happy Valley, and then even like talking to my kids about Puss in Boots film, which is coming in February. So it gives you that stuff to plan, and then you're like, oh, looking forward to that, and it sort of builds on your mood, makes it a bit better. But definitely, and I think it's even like just aims. It doesn't have to be like sort of resolutions as such, but just having aims, what I want to do, to help me in my mood. Like if it's music or books, like we'll all be getting Prince Harry's book, no doubt. Do you know what I mean? Just that stuff that like this is what I'm looking forward to. We're getting in, it's that excitement, and it is probably even though we're adults, it's the excitement from when you were a kid at Christmas. Like just a couple of weeks before.
Mm.
Oh, I'm delighted I got that, and now it's like stuff to look forward to, I suppose, because it is going to be quite like a difficult time, challenging time for like loads of people within the way that the country's going. Do you know what I mean? Following the bits.
It is kind of like that, using the turn of the year as like a milestone in it to like realign and like you've seen setting goals and stuff. But just that last point you were saying there, I find that interesting because how many times have you heard somebody say this year's got to be worse than last year? And it's like, and well, the last few years probably, well, in certain aspects have got worse, and it's probably a safe bet that in some other aspects or the same aspects it's going to be worse this year as well. But it's kind of like it's interesting how, and I like it's just how we measure time, I suppose. But it's weird how we just kind of like almost waiting in like Christmas and December and November to go like, oh, I can't be doing me next year because it's going to get worse. It's like things are worse now. We shouldn't be waiting for next year. And I was kind of going to bring this up about like the stress of like that like New Year and that thinking around 2023 is going to be shitter than 2022. Oh God, what's going to happen? What the Tories got to do? What's going to happen here? What's happen in Ukraine and Russia? They're going to hit the button and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, it's weird that we kind of turn in that just a measurement of time and that milestone into something that really stresses us out.
No.
And it's a total arbitrary thing, isn't it? Like you say, it's just so happens that that's what somebody's picked at some point in time. That's the new year for at that day. And so you've got the sort of two sides. And I like what you said there about like January. And you kind of you have that first bit, and then you realise you've got this optimism. So you're either optimistic about the new year because you have the people who set the resolutions and they're like, I'm going to try and make it a better year. But it's that setting yourself up to fail because right away you get back to work, so you're depressed because you're not off on holiday anymore. That time off is gone. The bills have you've racked up over Christmas there. You've been paid early in December, so it's a longer wait to your January pay. Like all these things, and actually that optimism that you might have at the start of the year dissipates really quickly because you're like, January's shit. And if you're expecting 2023 to be worse than 2022, then it's already become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But within the first couple of weeks, and then you sort of, well, it is worse, isn't it? It's shit.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting. Like, I don't know. How did you guys feel physically over like Christmas and New Year? Because I ended up, well, I was ill before Christmas, but it was like a flu type thing, and then I didn't really recover. But then I was ill again, like the end of last week with a similar sort of thing, and I'm thinking like, I do have a lot of stress. Like we booked another holiday for this year. There's all discussions at my work about bonuses. Am I got to get a bonus? My wife's asking, "I got to get a bonus?" And she said, I don't know. It's like, well, that's going to dictate if we can afford this and afford that, and like that whole thing around this year, 2023. Are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? And that planning, and then the stress around it. And I'm kind of like, I've been ill like twice. I'm probably the fittest I've been for years because I'm exercising loads. I'm eating really healthily. I'm taking protein. I'm getting my vitamins and all the rest of it. And I've been iller than I've been when I was sitting on my arse doing nothing. And I'm like, is it something to do with like the time of the year and the stress? I've been kind of pondering that, but I'm not really sure like if it is that. I don't know how you felt over Christmas and New Year. Do you think it like had an effect on your physical health?
I think for me, it's just the whole thing probably the same as loads of people. Just eat loads of rubbish, drink loads of rubbish, like eat, drink far more than what I should be. And then that'll affect, like, impacts physical and mental health by doing that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like, but we
Aye,
just
well,
sort
they're linked together. I said physical health, but obviously
yeah.
physical and then mental health.
and it's that thing where, like, you sort of, as soon as you see advent calendars and that as well, you're like, right, this is it. So I'm just going to start eating 1st of December. And I don't think it helps you because of that. Like, I was saying, like, just eating so much, like, cheese and, like, I went for, like, it seemed to go for, like, a couple of weeks without eating a meal. I was, like, sort of picky bits, you know, like, the stuff that you get for, like, Tesco's and Marks and that, and you're just, like, you know, like, the 3 for 2, and it's just, like, wee things that only, like, suddenly appear at Christmas. And then I don't think that does me any good. And then you just sort of feel done in. And then, like, because you're drinking that as well and you're out maybe more, sleep's all over the place. Then you're off, but then you're still probably got that cycle of, like, you should be working and that as well. So it's just, I don't think it's a really good time for me, like, mentally or physically. I don't think at Christmas. I think it definitely takes its toll. But then you don't want to be that person that's, like, on a night out and you're no drinking when you could be drinking. And then everybody's like, oh, why are you not drinking? Or you're not eating all the, like, the party food. Because it's really tasty.
Well, there is that.
That's why we have it. I found did they stop? I think at Christmas time it just gets busier and busier with stuff. And go back to what we were saying about the expectations that are put on you to kind of be here and there and everywhere, whether it's like a work night out or to catch up with your pals and go for a night out there, or time with your family, and the football schedule's busier, and then you just end up sort of running about like a blue ass fly. And using, like, actually yesterday, I ended up having to spend the day in A&E because I was getting chest pains, and thankfully it wasn't anything as serious as it could have been, but it's like a wee warning sign to say slow down a wee bit. And I think it just comes from the stress. Everything, like, work's busy, life's busy, and if you're not taking time to just kind of put the brakes on a wee bit and exercise that wee bit of self-care, then very quickly it catches up on your physical health.
Did you feel quite panicky when it was happening? Like, was it? Had you had panic attacks before that? It was like you could sort of.
I'd never had a panic attack before. I'm not sure that's necessarily what it was, or and it's ironic. So I think as I've got older, I definitely noticed when I get stressed out more. Historically, I tend to just take things in my stride. It's like one of my it's like feedback I always get at work. It's like, you're never flustered with what's going on. Like, it could be
horizontal
burning building around about me, and I'll just kind of, like, take it in my stride. I never ever let on the fact that I'm just not didn't pay attention. Like, it's I just don't notice the building's on fire. No, but as I've got older, I've definitely recognised things impact me more than I don't know if it's like the more responsibility that comes with life in general. It's not just like at work, but your home life changes as well as you get older as well. So when you know that you're susceptible to a bit of stress or whatever, and you start getting like the chest pains and everything, then obviously you know what it could be. I didn't ever think at any point that that's what it was. But then, without
You
kind of
never
going
know, though,
into
eh?
without going into too much detail, you're up at the hospital and they take blood tests and there's like a protein they check for that tells you if there's something up or if there has been. And they came back and said, "Oh, your blood's all right. You're on the threshold, though, so we can't let you go. We need to do it again in 2 hours after your last one to see if we're actually comfortable that it's all right because this protein's obviously evident there." And then you're like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And you start to again panic a wee bit there, but touch wood, always well with it. So,
Mhm.
but it's just
Uh,
like I
What
say,
about
at least
yourself? And I was just going to say, Gordon, have you had like panic attacks like that before in the past, or is it something that?
no, I've never had a panic attack. I know that I recollect anyway, but I do have like triggers around
Mhm.
like stress and feeling like overwhelmed and stuff. Like I've got it right now. Like I don't know what it is, but on my right hand side, just below my ribs, I have this constant uncomfortable feeling that sometimes get worse the more stressed on,
Mhm.
and it's like somebody like it's like take my two fingers and like poking, like just pushing into my side like constantly. It's like something's just poking into my side, like something's
Mhm.
there, and it's never been painful, but it's always uncomfortable. And I went for all the scans, the blood tests, all the rest of it, and nothing. And they like again they put these things down to stress 9 times out of 10. Like, oh, it must be stress related. But I get like it really affects my like daily life sometimes. Like I'm sitting just trying to work and I can't sit comfortable because it's like somebody's pushing
Mhm.
into my side. I'm like, fucking hell, I just want to sit here and get on with work and it distracts you. And like when I'm meditating and that as well, it's really difficult to ignore it. But no, I've never had a panic attack as such, like, because that is probably like the pinnacle of, well, other than like a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, but it's the pinnacle of, from a stress perspective, like you need to, something, or anxiety or whatever. It's like your
Yeah.
body's saying, like, well, you need to do something differently here.
Mhm.
What about you, Neil?
And I've had them. I probably had them like I don't know how many, but I know there was like two instances. One of them was years ago. I'd been to see Oasis at Irvine Beach. Me and my mates, it was like best concert ever. But we were right at the front, and this is before like health and safety was like such a thing. And it was like if you ever remember, like if you're old enough, like the terrace in East Road, and it was like sways and just like crowds of folk going one way and another. And we were right at the front. One of my mates was on the deck. There was like folk standing on, and you couldn't breathe, and it was just like unbelievable. You're like you're just going one way, but then you're getting pushed over, so your body's like twisting and turning in different like directions. And then the week after that, I was at Disco Inferno in the venue nightclub. I was in the bottom, and I was just a wee bit busy, and I started panicking, and it was sort of like going back to like the week before being in like this. Even though I wasn't as busy, I wasn't getting pushed about. There was no sways or anything. I was like, oh, this is weird, and I just felt really strange. I couldn't breathe in that, and I was like, oh, that's mad. And it's the first time. But I think for me, I used to do football reporting for a newspaper, and they used to give you like a game to do like on a weekly basis. So they'd give you like on a Tuesday what game you're doing on a Saturday. But this week, it was funny the way the girl worded it. She's like double dunting, so you're getting two games. So here's what you're doing this Saturday. This is what you're doing the next again Saturday. So that Saturday I was at Albion Rovers, but the following Saturday I was to do Berwick and Alloa. And this point, this would have been League Two. Alloa were like winning the league, and they were like managed by Paul Hartley at the time. So I'm doing like the Albion Rovers game, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, right, I've got this game just now. And I was in the stadium, it must have been about like 2:15. Always got there early. I'm just sitting in the wee press box. But if Alloa win today and then they beat Berwick next week, they've won the league. So I'm covering the game where they won the league. And all of a sudden, I just like it was brutal the way I was feeling. Because I was thinking, like, they win the league, I'm going to have to write more words, which wasn't really a problem. And I could do that time, like the deadlines and stuff, be able to do it. But then you're having to probably interview more people. Um, there's the stress, the players are going to be celebrating. And I just had this vision in my head, like if you're of a generation, remember when like football teams used to celebrate like leagues and cups, they'd all be in a bath celebrating with like champagne and stuff like that. And I thought, I'm going to have to interview them. They're all going to be in a bath. I'm going to end up in the water. I had a dictaphone, so that's going to get like water damaged. My mobile phone's going to get damaged. I'm in Berwick. I'm going to be like soaked in like clothes. I'm going to have to walk back, like probably naked for Berwick all the way back to Edinburgh. So there was like the sort of double feelings of like being like physically exposed, but also like exposed. Like I wouldn't have been able to do the article and missed the deadlines. It would have been unprofessional. And I was sitting there by myself, and Albion Rovers, like in the press box. It's not a press box; it was just like a bench covered in pigeon shit. And I just remember that point. I couldn't breathe, and I was like worrying about something. I was like, I have no idea like what I'm doing. And I was by myself, but if I was with somebody, I would have been. I think I'm having a heart attack. It was just like my heart couldn't keep up. I couldn't breathe. I was like, I was worrying about it, and then I was just like, right, just try and bring it in. Where are you? Where are you? Bring it back. Bring it back. Trying to gain the focus. It always made me think it's like again, definitely no medical expert, but sort of like panic attacks. There's like three things that sort of do. You're like worrying about something which has happened before, or you're worrying about something that might happen in the future, or there's a combination that you're worrying about something that happened in the past that's going to happen again in the future. So I was just mad, but like there's times I'm a lot better at it now, and I'll still have like panic and I get quite socially anxious in that. But that one, Albion Rovers Stadium, that was like I felt I was going to die in a pigeon shit infested press box worrying about a game, and I was going to be like in the bath with all these players and stuff like that, walking up to Edinburgh like naked with my broken dictaphone. So that was the highs and my lows at that point, I think.
Have you said
That
other
sounds
times
rough.
where you like your mental health has been debilitating and stopped you doing something that you ordinarily wouldn't have had an issue doing? So not
Oh,
necessarily through like a
definitely.
panic attack, but just if it's manifested itself in a different way.
I've definitely, like for me, and I've mentioned it before when I was like really low, and again I was covering a football game, but I came home and it was Hibs v Hearts when Dal Horgan scored 2 goals at Tynecastle. I just couldn't go out. All my mates were out. I just couldn't even meet them after that. I was just done. Like I was like, nah, I'm just feeling so low. Like I cannot get off the sofa. Do you know what I mean? Despite the fact that like I know I could have like thrown like a coin in Lothian Road and hit it like any one of my mates at that point. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, nah, I'm done. Like I'm done. And that was like it was like really low where I just thought I can't even do it. And even sometimes it's a really good point because it'll be things that like you do on a daily basis. And
Mm.
again, not going back to the like resolutions, but I've got like a habit tracking app and it's stuff like just so you know you do it. But I'll be like I've mentioned to you both before I like writing, but there'll be times I'm like just can't be bored. I just like I'm mentally crushed. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like I just can't do it.
I probably have it all the time. Like like didn't consciously notice it, but even things like I can't be arsed with work a day and then calling in sick
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, and you didn't really think, fucking hell, like my mental health is really low
Mhm.
here. Well, you might, but
Mm-hmm.
I think 9 times out of 10, you probably, or a lot of people didn't. They just put it down to, oh, I'm just tired of a shit night's sleep, or I'm just
Mm-hmm.
a bit fed up and I'll be fine in the morning. But it probably is that. It's probably like you're almost at like your mental health is so low, which then affects your physical health. You feel tired and all the rest of it, and then you just can't be arsed in. And I've been loads of times where I've not went out with my mates, and then there's no till this moment right now when we've asked that question, Matty, is that I've now thinking back on it, it probably is because I was just fucking really low for whatever reason at the time.
Mm.
That's why I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it. It's interesting.
I find
What
it
be
just
yourself,
things
mate?
like it's almost like what's this a phrase like a self sabotage. Like see when I know there's like a high pressure thing that needs to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you've probably got plenty of time to do it, and then you leave it like you procrastinate on it. I do that a lot. Like if I know it's something that's like if it's important
Mm.
um or if I know it's going to be challenging or whatever, I procrastinate. I'm really bad for like asking people for help with something. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
needed to involve other folk in it, like an example, like organised a stag to Prague for years and years ago for one of my mates, best man, and part of that is telling people where we're going, where the hotel is, when the flights are, and getting money for the flights and that for it. And I found that part, and it sounds really, really stupid, really difficult to do because I was like, there's this much pressure to do it that
Mm-hmm.
actually it was. it was like last minute when folk were saying, Matty, what's going on with this? Like, I've got money here. Where did I send it? Like having to kind of answer and going, why was I bothered about asking folk for that? They all knew it was coming. They're all volunteering to go. Everybody was willing participants. They all needed to know where they were staying, but it was all last minute. And I find myself doing that a lot. And things that I find stressful, it's almost like I pretend they're not happening until I absolutely have to face it.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's healthy. Sometimes I can thrive in that environment, and you go and do some really good work on the back, and knowing you've got to do it. It's like, actually, my deadline's in an hour. I know I can go and deliver this and just batter it through, and maybe do 3 or 4 other things in that hour where you're hyper productive. But I don't know. It's like, self-sabotage. You know if that's the right phrase for it, or just make life unnecessarily difficult. And I think that's just the effect of being stressed out. Things like I avoid it. It's stupid. I know it's stupid, and I probably need to figure out a way to do something about it.
But I suppose it's sort of like all of this is about knowing yourself, right? Like you've just articulated that you know that you do that, and that you maybe need to change it. But because I'm really similar, I'm kind of similar in terms of, because I learned years ago. I don't know how I managed to learn this about myself, but well, I know because I just done it and it was successful. But when it came to like uni work and work deadlines and stuff, 99.9% of the time I do my best work last minute.
Yeah.
Like when that pressure, I thrive under pressure. I need to have, and I say to my bosses, every job I've had, I say to my boss, give me more work. You've got to do loads, give me more, because you'll get more out of me. Like I love being under pressure. I hate sitting with fuck all to do and just like twiddling my thumbs. But I'm quite organised. Like stag doing stuff like that. I've done like stag doing stuff, and I do organise them quite like way in advance, and I make sure that, because I feel like I owe it to I've got a responsibility kind of thing.
Aye.
So, but I can relate in terms of that kind of procrastination, but I do it deliberately. So it's maybe more like for you. I'm obviously not telling you what the fuck to do, but
tell me.
Like, it's maybe just that, because maybe just that adjustment to go like, well, certain situations, scenarios, like that's probably best because I do my best. Like I've got that pressure, and that's when I do my best work, or I perform the best, or I come out with something that I wouldn't if I did it 3 months before I was meant to do it. But then there's other times where you're like, maybe in these situations I need to be a bit more proactive and get that stuff done. And it's just like all this stuff we've talked about, and I all through every time we do Heidbangers, I'm probably going to mention fucking mindfulness at some point, because I'm just massive into it. And I don't give a shit if anybody thinks I sound like a hippie, because that's what my wife calls me all the time when I mention it. But the whole point there, and what you were saying about panic attacks, Neil, is that what's happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future. Like the whole point of mindfulness is just like knowing yourself and knowing that yourself in the moment. Like forget about what's happened in the past. It doesn't exist anymore. The future doesn't exist yet. You can't do anything about it. You can influence it. You can try and influence it positively, but it's not happened yet. Just concentrate on right now. And that's why like the breathing exercise and stuff like that is just so important, because you're just like, there's nothing more in the moment than you breathing at that time and concentrating on those breaths. And I think all mental health, not all mental health issues, but like 99.9% of mental health issues stem from something that's happened in your past, and then that affects what you think is going to happen in the future. So it's like, and like things like, I don't know, like obviously you probably, I don't know what your diagnosis was, Matty, but if like it's stress related, the thing I've got on my side is stress related, and like Neil, I'm sure you've got loads of stuff that's stressful in your life. It's one thing to know about it, it's the other thing to deal with it. And I can stand here and say, oh, like mindfulness helps me and stuff like that, but it'll not help everybody. And that's the hardest part. Having good mental health is actually, it's not really fixing. Like I think it's the right way to, like, it's not something to be fixed. It's something to be addressed and adjusted in a certain way so that you can deal with it better. Because you're never going to be able to just like make things pop. Like it's not a hard drive. Can I go and delete files? Like it's always going to be there. You just need to find a way of embracing it and dealing with it in a better way. And it's just so difficult. Like, nothing's ever got to be easy when you're dealing with your mental health, but the benefits that you get from it are probably the best benefits you could ever imagine. Yeah. So I went on a rant there about before listening to shit, but that'll happen.
It's almost the thing about you feel better if you feel like you're in control of it as well. Like if you recognise it and you're doing something about it, I think almost automatically you feel better. Like I know if when I recognise I'm procrastinating, when I take steps to address it, which I have to for like I've got a responsible job, so you can't just do work. Like you have to go and make sure you're organised and professionally manage to do it, because I can take control and do the things that I need to do. But it's recognising it and then knowing that there are actions you need to take to stay on top of it and not let it overcome you.
Agreed.
And I think there's a trouble. I know definitely for me then, if you're like putting stuff off in like work, then you're putting stuff off in like personal life, and you're maybe putting stuff off that you would like do to like for yourself, like be it reading or recording music or doing podcasts. You start, so like one filters in another. But I have found it as well, when I have managed to be like productive at work, then I feel like productive. Like I'll maybe like walk home that day as opposed to just getting a bus. So you're productive, like exercise, and you come home and you're like, right, I'm going to actually do right. I'm not going to put off. I'm going to read. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to do stuff for the family and that as well. So it's such a tricky balance. Definitely a tricky balance, but it's one that's worth like sort of making, I would say. But it's like small steps. And again, going back to the whole like resolution thing, it's like you're not going to like nobody's. You need to be careful that you'll see people and they're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. But it's just even for us doing this podcast, we've spoke about it for like a few weeks, planning it. Do you know what I mean? So that's like a resolution, and then it's like, right, so it just happens that we started in January, but it doesn't. We're not all going to change the world like today. Do you know what I mean? But we can do like take small steps. I don't know, but it's just still taking small steps to get there. And then it's those small steps that keep you busy, so you're putting off less and keeping yourself occupied.
Do you think it helps when you bring in others? I mean, it goes back to what we were saying right at the very outset. We were saying folk are struggling to speak to somebody that you trust, because if you think about it, we, especially in terms of procrastinating, right? So if we commit and say let's do it on this date, this time, because there's other people then that are involved in that have agreed to, you're more likely to achieve it and actually go ahead and do it.
I think that's a big thing.
It is, because the other podcast that I've been doing, the Twisting Your Melon podcast, just to put that,
the excellent Twisting Your Melon podcast, yeah.
It's I put a message out, and I was struggling with my mental health at the time, maybe October sort of time, and I just had to step back. I wasn't doing it justice, but that's what kind of makes it more difficult. I know that I'll be more likely to do this more regularly than the other podcast, because I've got you guys involved. And one of the reasons why I brought you and Neil, other than you being an absolute legend, to the Melon podcast, was for that reason as well, was to have someone there to bounce ideas off of, to keep me on the straight and narrow, and kind of give me a reason to go, right, well, I can't let Neil doing. I'll have no problem letting myself doing, but I can't let him doing. So it does help. It definitely does help having it's almost like we're giving each other nudges, even just subconsciously, to get it done. And then when it's one of the things, it's you didn't. Sometimes you didn't want it, and you just kind of be arsed. But then every time we do it, right now, we're probably coming to the end of this. But I think it's I felt brilliant for doing it. Again, there will be times we'll maybe be 20 episodes in, and I'll be like, oh, fucking, I can't be arsed with this tonight. But then as soon as we do it, I'll be like, that was magic. Every single time. So you've got it's that having that mindset to think about the end point. I was watching, I don't know if you've seen, it was Newcastle game in the FA Cup, and they put the cameras in the dressing room, and it was Eddie Howe, and he was talking to the players, and he said, what was it he said? There was certain points, milestones, I don't know if it was the exact word that he used, but there's certain milestones I want you as players to take away from this, and it was one was you're into the next round of the FA Cup, and the other one was like Dan Burns' celebration. He was just kind of making a joke, but even just like him breaking that down to go, right, doesn't really matter about all the shit that happened before and all the rest of it. It's like, think about it for next time. Like, think about the milestone of what you could achieve. Like, imagine football teams do it at the time. Like, they think, well, if we win this game, we've got 3 points. We win this game, we're through the next round of the cup. Think about that milestone, make it worth it. And then you're in that mindset that you're going to actually go through it, rather than if you didn't think about it and you're just like, I can't be arsed, and you're struggling a bit, you probably will procrastinate more and more to the point where you just didn't actually follow through. I fucking followed through again.
So we've come full circle, haven't we?
I know, aye.
Right, that's probably a good point to call it a night. I feel like that was a good discussion to have on our sort of the relaunch of Heidbangers. If there's any topics in particular that you would want us to cover, then by all means get in touch. If you use that Longbangers Twitter account in the meantime till we maybe get a Heidbangers one up and running, and we'll quite happily kind of talking. And if there's anything here that is touchy enough that you would want to speak to us about it, then we're always open to kind of guests coming on the podcast at some point. Can't obviously get everybody on, but if you've got something to contribute to the discussion, we'd be more than happy to do it. Gordon, Neil, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing how these progress. I think we're looking at putting them out fortnightly initially. That's the sort of the time frame that we're looking at. So no overloading people with them. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no.